Hi, everybody. This is Dan Stolbarger. Welcome to this week's Kafir Middle East update. We just call it the update now. And usually start with the questions of the day. But first, let me remind you that there's a PDF PowerPoint that accompanies this presentation. It should just be a YouTube link or a link right on the YouTube page, or you can always go to our website at holygroundexplorations.com. So I begin with kind of the, as I see it, and the big questions of our day. And we'll start with just the age-old question of when will Israel actually invade Rafah? What's the current conditions up north with the border of Lebanon and Hezbollah? Is Israel truly just standing alone in this day? And what in the heck is happening to our college campuses? And then this is real-time news. Right now, the Israeli War Cabinet is convening amidst negotiations for a hostage deal and preparations for a maneuver in Rafah. That is happening right now at the time of this presentation. And by the way, it's the week of May 2nd, and we always look back at the events of the last week. We start with our news bites. The ICC is threatening, as you've probably heard, to issue arrest warrants for Netanyahu and other Israeli leaders, and Biden is doing absolutely nothing. By backing, arming, and training Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis, keep in mind what Iran is actually doing is they're launching this proxy war against Israel, leveraging the conflict in order to divert the attention from its nuclear ambitions. Believe me, they're pedal to the metal with the pursuit of a nuclear weapon. And if everybody's just looking at the smoke and mirrors of Hezbollah and Hamas and the Houthis, all the better for Iran. And then Carolyn Glick, as you know, somebody I respect a great deal. In regards to Saudi Arabia, her quote is, "If the price of the peace with Saudi Arabia is losing the war and supporting the Palestinian state, forget it. I don't want peace with Saudi Arabia." And then we have all these protests. And keep in mind, again, this is just our news bites. These protests are not spontaneous. The protests are not organic. Outsiders are driving them. U.S. Muslims for Palestine is financing. It's the Hamas financing arm in the U.S. that who is organizing these protests. And then the Biden administration, again, is considering bringing in Palestinians from Gaza as refugees into the U.S., but not a single Arab nation is willing to welcome their own so-called brothers. You ever wonder why that is? And then finally, Bibi Netanyahu has made it crystal clear to Biden and Blinken that he will not agree to end the war on Hamas as part of the so-called hostage deal. That's our news bites. Now our articles. Hamas has countered back this titled, "What a Deal." Hamas, here's what they're responding to in terms of this truce, ceasefire. We demand 100% Israeli withdrawal from the West Bank, 100% Israeli withdrawal from half of Jerusalem, including the entire Old City, and the Jewish, Christian, and Muslim holy sites, and 100% right of return for 5 million Palestinians to Israel. That is the official Hamas response. Unbelievable. And then, of course, one of our representatives in Congress, Ilhan, the head of the Anti-Defamation League on Saturday, has accused Democratic U.S. Representative Ilhan Omar of spreading blood libel after she implied Jewish students who support Israel amid its war against Hamas are pro-genocide. She makes the comments while visiting, you guessed it, her alma mater, Columbia University, where her daughter is attending at this time. And then what's next up north? Israeli Foreign Minister Israel Katz, warning to his French counterpart, quote, if Hezbollah does not withdraw, we are approaching an all-out war. In that case, Israel will act against Hezbollah in all of Lebanon. It will occupy a large area of the southern Lebanese border in order to create a security buffer zone that will be controlled by the IDF. This will allow our residents of the north to return to their homes safely. So this is just a ticking time bomb. And then our friend Amir Safadi has asked and issued a call to prayer. And he makes this statement. He says, it's not easy for me to write the following words, but I'm going to get literally sick if I don't do it. So here's his comments. This month, that's May, will be a month of extreme manifestations of the enemy concerning Israel. Therefore, I am calling on the worldwide church, believers, to pray like never before. I am calling upon church leaders, ministry leaders, and prayer warriors to take these words very seriously. God is calling his people to stand in the gap. Stand in the gap for his beloved people, chosen people of Israel. He is commanding the church, saying, comfort ye, my people. And then just as I mentioned, make sure you grab that PDF PowerPoint and this slide that you're going to see of Columbia University. The question that I ask is, what looks odd about this? And the article simply states, something's odd about these campus tent encampments. Almost all the tents are identical. Same design, same size, same fresh out of the box appearance, which suggests that rather than an organic process whereby students would bring a variety of individual tents, someone or somebody or some organization has supplied them and organized these events. I think it would be instructive if we can determine who that someone is. But rather than spontaneous demonstrations, these are choreographed. These are choreographed events by hidden actors. And the students, sincere though they may be, are merely being manipulated as props. Again, North Face is making a killing off of all this. And this is an update from Iran. I see a typo here, so when you grab this, it says the undate. That's probably the same. But the Iranians have boasted to CNN about their missile and drone program recently, and they've provided a tour of an exhibit that shows off Iran's capabilities. They want to show that it has the ability to launch missiles and drones on other countries with virtual impunity. Iran is now in its 5th decade of this regime, and it believes that it's a turning point for them right now, and it's on the verge of becoming a premier military technology power, the foremost of the region. And so you're going to see these drones and these rockets and these missiles. It's interesting. The General Ali Balai, he's hosted this tour, and his quote is, 2 weeks after the Middle East came to the brink of an all-out war, with Iran firing hundreds of projectiles towards Israel in retaliation for the suspected Israeli airstrike on the Iranian embassy compound in Damascus. He says that Tehran is keen to show the world that it is capable of fighting a wider conflict, and it can be challenged by no one. Now, even though the Iranian attack on Israel was mostly a failure, it demonstrates the regime's impressive capabilities and its willingness to terrorize the region. So-called drones and rockets, precise. These aren't led by GPS, so they're not just random out there. Thought that they would strike within 5 meters of their intended targets. And we read in this article that they're actually pre-programmed for vulnerable sites, not just in Israel, by the way. Keep that in mind. Not just in Israel, but so-called worldwide. And then we have another undate with Saudi Arabia. And I can't verify this. This is an article from the Jerusalem Post that basically says the Saudis have decided to normalize relations with Israel, and they're simply debating regarding the timing of the announcement. Supposedly, there are those that are wanting to wait until after the election, but the question is when. It's not an issue of whether they will or not. It's when they will reveal that this is a decision that they've made. And so again, Biden, that administration's been pushing them to want to connect this Palestinian statehood as part of the Saudis joining the Abrahamic Accords, but the kingdom, as they refer to them as themselves. Basically, their statement is that they're only demanding that guarantees of progress are being made, that if there's progress being made in this area, they will agree to have diplomatic ties with Jerusalem. There is a documentary that's out that I'm encouraging you all to take the time to observe, to watch. It's about an hour long, and it's called Screams Before Silence. It's keeping the events of October 7th fresh in our minds so that we can never forget. You can simply Google that, and it'll take you right to the site. My wife and I have been able to watch this screening, and it has a dramatic impact. And as we approach this Sunday evening, we will be approaching Yom HaShoah, and it's the Holocaust Remembrance Day that's coming up. Kind of interesting timing. And as usual, we're asking friends, partners of Kafir and Holy Ground, as Amir has requested, that this would be a week of intense prayer. I think something major will break this particular week, but we want to remember not only the Holocaust and not only the screams before the silence that I mentioned. But remember those that are captive today, that they may be released. So God bless you, and shalom. And this is a report for this week.